Hey everybody, welcome to the IC Topic Chats for today, May 8th. We are in 2025 and we're all still here where this group continues to grow and develop. We are a couple weeks away from our 5-year anniversary of having done this, which is super exciting. Ashima Singh has joined us today to talk about branding and rebranding and talk about her story and her adventures. I'm going to just hand it over to you, Ashima. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate all of you who are in the audience. I'm sure you have things to teach me, and I hope that you will. So I thought a lot about, given the audience, given that several of you have been doing this work for a long time and know about branding and rebranding. I thought a lot about what I was going to share. So at the end of the day, I decided that I'm just going to share my story with branding and rebranding. So this is not so much a how-to conversation, it's more what Ashima did. And so I wanted to preface my conversation by saying that. So I got my business license at the start of last year, and it was super exciting. Oh, there we go. I was so excited. The kind of excitement that you feel when you get a new toy. And I still love toys, even though I'm an adult. I enjoy toys, even baby toys are fun. And this was an unanticipated turn in my life. I had never imagined myself in the seat of thinking about independent consulting, let alone going down that pathway. And working for myself felt very much like I had taken a piece of clothing off the rack in a store and it fit me to a T. It just felt amazing. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew a little bit. I knew enough to get myself in trouble, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just kind of forged ahead. I was drunk on this naivete, my excitement. So I got I set up the basics. I got a logo, and I did use AI to design my logo. I have mixed feelings about AI now that I know the environmental impact it's having, which is only going to grow. So that's a separate conversation, and previous presenters have talked about it. I strongly recommend you view those conversations. I set up a website. This is not the very first website I had made, but it is one of the earlier versions. And I got a bank account, I had a business plan, I even had a client at the time. And so I was ready to move forward. And I hit the gas and I crashed pretty quickly, as you might imagine. Why did I crash and why did I feel like I was crashing? It was because people were asking me I'm sorry, I missed an important thing here. My initial business name was Mindful Reflections, which resonated because, which resonated with me because I meditate, I try to approach my work mindfully, uh, even though my excitement and other feelings sometimes get in the way of being mindful, but I try to be as present as I can. And so I thought that needs to be a part of my name. It needs to be a part of my brand. And I wanted the word reflections because I have, for the past many years, I have approached evaluation as a process of self-reflection for an organization, for a program, whatever the unit might be. It is using data and other information to self-reflect and know yourself. And so both of those words were really important to me. And I moved with that until I crashed. The word, the name was very confusing to people. They had meant they thought I got questions about, are you a therapist? People said, what is it that you do again? And they would scrunch up their nose. They were saying this. And they would ask me about who my clients are. Do I teach meditation? So all of that to say that it was very clear to me um, that I needed to do some hard self-examination about what my brand is, how I'm presenting myself to people, and make some changes. So I had, fortunately for me, a wealth of resources. And when I say wealth, I really do mean wealth. Um, I should have made all the IC resources and the people within the IC TIG who offer their time and wisdom and resources to help those of us who need help. I should have made these bigger, but I didn't. For whatever reason, it was a design choice, not a value choice. So I had all the resources that the ICTIG offers, including this chat and crisis office hours, business as unusual that Naima runs, metrics and mentors that Emma Alston and Heidi Berto run, the ICTIG Healing Circle, which Tasha Parker runs, and of course the newsletter. These resources, you're always having conversations that are so relevant to self-reflection as business entrepreneurs, self-reflection as in the connections that happen with clients, self-reflection in how our business is growing. And so those conversations were really helpful to me. I also had business coaches, and the logo is from the business coaches that I had. You might recognize it from one of our fellow IC members. That's Lauren McLean and Angelica Gulbis's Coachable logo. So they were very helpful. I also had opportunities to connect with the Maryland Small Business Opportunity Center, which they are amazing. They offer a wide variety of services to help businesses get off the ground, including free coaching. They also partner with other Maryland free services. One of them is MBOC, Maryland Business Opportunity Center, and they provide another range of services that includes things like legal help. So forming your contract, looking at the structure of your LLC, looking at the, from a tax perspective, is it set up correctly? So I had all of these resources that held me up. And then I also turned to books that are out there. And I found really helpful this book called Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port. There, along with the book, which is a very useful resource because he kind of talks you through it every step of the process of building your resources, there's also this workbook. And this workbook, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is available for free on his website. So if you just Google Book Yourself Solid Workbook, the link comes up and you can download it for free. And I highlighted, and I think the print is too small, but the index of that workbook and as well as the main book, there's a chapter called sort of identifying your brand. What do I do to figure out what my brand is? What is the hard work that we as business owners might need to do to figure out what defines us, what makes us special, what would encourage a potential client to talk to me and not to somebody else? And so in these conversations that I was hearing and participating in, as well as the book and the workbook, the undergirding or the facets that I really needed to think about was doing some hard self-examination. What is it how is it that I do my work? How do I engage with people that I have worked with? What is my philosophy of approaching my work, and then how does it roll out? How do I actually practice what I preach? And that put me in a position to face my fears and own my strengths. And that's really hard work. Um, and I will say that without doing those two things, it's very difficult to be a business owner, to be a solo business owner. So take a deep breath, forged on, and I will say that this is something that I continue to do. I also sought feedback from others, and the others that are included in that broad category are friends, people who know me in professional context, people that I have just met, people who served as my coaches, people who are my clients, people. Sometimes I looked for feedback, and not necessarily verbal feedback, but how people are engaging with me is feedback. And I gathered all of that stuff to really think about, how are people responding to when I put my philosophy into action, and put all of this together and realize that see, I use trauma and attachment a lot in how I approach not only work, but how I approach engaging with other people. This is a line of thinking that I went down probably about 10 years ago. I've been reading about trauma and attachment theory, and I had started learning from sort of an intellectual perspective how these things, they're just webs that are integrated through everything that we do, every part of who we are. They affect relationships, which are not necessarily always healthy, but they affect relationships at the individual level. They affect relationships of how a person relates to another group. It also affects relationships between groups. It affects how people relate to their organizations and to society in a larger sense. And most importantly, in my work as an evaluator and a consultant, these ideas really come into play when I am working with organizations and how people relate to program data. Because, like me, other people also have a really hard time with self reflection. It's not easy for anybody, nor should it be. And I think things that are worth doing, I know this is somewhat cliche, but things that are worth doing are often not easy. It takes a lot of practice to gain that comfort. And that's true of self-reflection, as think about your own relationships with people in your lives, people that you've known for a very long time. You have trust with them, you have a comfort with them, you might even have a specialized vocabulary with them. And so when they give you feedback, especially feedback that is negative about something that you've been doing, it's so much easier to take than feedback that comes at you like a punch, and especially from somebody new. And so, this is kind of the fraught relationship that people have with their data. And believe it or not, trauma does inform that. And we all have trauma in our lives. It's it's a hard reality, but it's true, and it does affect our bodies in ways that then start to affect our relationships. But I can't, as an evaluator, as a consultant, of course, I can't deal with this larger, broader picture of relationships, but I could certainly help people relate to how they were using data in their lives and their program growth and program self-reflection. And I looked to professional organizations, the literature that's out there to help guide me and to sort of provide me with things that I could lean on, ideas that I could lean on when I wasn't feeling certain about myself. And the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration, they have guiding principles to a trauma-informed approach. Um, I grabbed this infographic from their website, and if you're interested in this, I can put a link to that infographic in the chat once I'm done talking. But if you look at these are the broad categories, and I think that the arrows in these broad categories are misleading because safety does not um, always lead to trustworthiness, because that arrow can go the other way. You know, it's a reciprocal relationship. Trust and safety, yes, absolutely go hand in hand. But these things can co-occur. These things can occur in a variety of different configurations. But if you start to look at these categories, you'll realize that these are also inherent and embedded in good program evaluation. You have to build safety, a sense of safety and trust with the organization that you're working with, to know that they're giving you information that you need to know, and they have to trust you as an expert. And you both have to build a sense of respect around the expertise that different people bring to the table. We've all been in organizations where certain voices matter more than other voices, and we all know how frustrating that can be. There's also this really, I think, valuable notion of peer support, and that plays out in a variety of ways. It's not just looking to people who are your professional peers or your social peers. This is also about approaching evaluation stakeholders, community members, as though they have the same value as you. And so it's really about, for me, this is about placing value on humans. And that does away with that power imbalance that can often occur in all kinds of relationships, but certainly the evaluation. And that can then foster things like collaboration. It empowers people to speak up. Because again, we know that when certain voices are louder, the quieter voices go silent. And that is detrimental to organizational development. It's detrimental to evaluation. And this is very, very important. And I suspect in a year, this is going to be even more important, is this idea of cultural, historical, gender, and you can put race in there, socioeconomic status, ability, neurodivergence. You know, you can put all of those things in there that are relevant to the context that you're looking at. So I don't want to restrict the context to just those three categories. They're just sort of thought prompts. And happily enough, these guidelines overlap with AEA's guiding principles, ethical guiding principles. And so knowing that there's this organizational overlap between a mental health organization and then AEA, and there's convergence between the ideas, is really encouraging. It told me that I was sort of thinking along the right paths. And again, as I thought about this more and more, I realized that something is missing from the SAMHSA approach, and that something missing is boundaries. We, in the IC chat and in other IC conversations, I have heard this idea, this difficulty with boundaries come up over and over and over again. And I think it's a really good conversation because boundaries surface in a variety of different ways. They surface in writing contracts. They surface in um, how much money should I ask for? How much should I charge for my services? Boundaries inform how much do I pay my subcontractors? What kind of expectations should I establish with somebody that I've hired for administrative support? Boundaries play a role in all of this. There and there's no good infographic for boundaries. I looked. So I chose this picture of ducks, not just because I like birds. I do. I like all kinds of ducks, but this picture particularly, I think, speaks to the idea that these ducks have different colors, and there are edges between these two different colors. So those edges help us understand that there are two ducks that we're looking at here, and not, if the whole image had been gray or orange, it would have been confusing. The boundaries, again, the edges help us figure out, oh, those are wings. The white spots are wings. The black spots are eyes, and so on and so forth. So boundaries are important, and this is also giving you a window into how I sort of implement the SAMHSA approach. I use storytelling and metaphor a lot, in working with clients. I use that approach because I have found in my work, which has primarily been in higher education for the last several years, but I've also worked with grant funded programs. People have a really difficult relationship with the jargon that goes with program evaluation, and that jargon can create a barrier. And it can be really hard to have productive conversations with clients when you've got this invisible barrier that you don't see because, and I'm sorry I'm saying you, I should say that I don't see because I'm so comfortable with that language of program evaluation. And so I realized that I needed to change my approach, and I really needed to move away from that jargon and start using storytelling and start using metaphor to help people understand what I was talking about, make it approachable for them, and then invite them to engage. And so I've used that approach in a variety of ways. I have spoken in front of policymaking bodies. Um, at Washington State, there's an organization that creates policy around teacher education preparation. And they were in this transition from going one set of standards to complying with CAPE standards that had just come on board. They had just hit their horizon, and they were very, very restrictive. And so there was a lot of angst, a lot of anger, frankly, around people not, the policy making board not really understanding what they were rolling out and the impact that it would have on the goals that they had set for themselves, particularly that they had this goal set for themselves around diversity. They wanted to diversify the teacher workforce. And even if you haven't worked in the education arena, you've probably heard these this reality that teachers are leaving teaching. They are unhappy. They are finding something else. And they're just not happy being in the school system. And the policies that they have to comply with plays a huge role in that. And I don't know if you've spent time around people who teach, but they tend to be very bright people. They tend to be funny. They tend to be thoughtful. They tend to be very giving. They just tend to be very pro-social people in general. Along with this, having this incredible emotional intelligence, they also have content intelligence. And so these are people we want in our schools teaching kids. Even if I don't have children, but I want these people teaching other people's children because I want a society in which other people are happy so that I can be happy and I can have healthier relationships with in all those facets that I had shared. Um, so yeah, I used storytelling with this policymaking board, and it worked. It was a surprise. I had 2 minutes every 3 months to stand in front of this board and point out to them how their thinking might be flawed in one way or another. Um, and I was nervous doing it. Like I'm a little nervous now, but storytelling really helped. I also took that approach when I spoke in front of a state legislative committee in Washington State. At the time, Pramila Jayapal was on that committee, so I got to meet her in person, and it's one of those life highlights. And I made an impact with them. Pramila Jayapal, she asked me to do some research for her. So that's storytelling. I'm emphasizing that because it can break down a lot of barriers unexpectedly. It certainly broke down barriers for me with um, faculty and staff that I was working with in higher education. People that hated evaluation started coming up to me and started joking. So my role, really in this process, I realized was I am the facilitator to develop a healthier relationship between program information and the people within that program. So my role is a facilitator, and then I gently remove myself. I work myself out of a job, and that just has to be. I'm successful when I'm no longer needed. And this self-reflection that I did on my own, I think gave me a strong appreciation for the self-reflection that organizations have to do. It created empathy in me, not sympathy, because sympathy again reinforces that power dynamic that can be so toxic, but empathy. And I think that empathy has really helped me be open to listening, be open to feedback from the people that I'm working with, and to give feedback in a way that it can be heard. I'm not always great at it. I will own my faults, but I try. And I realized that when it came to branding, this personal process that I had engaged in self-reflecting on myself, not only as sort of a human in a larger society, but also very specifically as a consultant in a business arena, um, was really they were mirror images. The way that I deliver services is also how I think about myself and other people, and how I deliver my services. And so I spoke to my various coaches, and I realized that for now, my brand is me. And that may change in the future, and that's okay. Um, because we're all we're all dynamic people. None of us stays static, and that's a good thing. Uh, so for now, I changed my name from Mindful Reflections to ashimasingh.org. I kept my logo. Um, again, it was a budget-friendly way to get a logo. At my next rebranding, whenever that is, I think I will hire professionals who can do this work for me. Because all my work so far has been DIY. The infrastructure has all been DIY, and it's been fun, but my God, it takes energy. It takes energy away from actually building my business. So one of the things that I learned is that the rebranding process takes time. And so you have to do a lot of priority setting. What is important to you right now? Is growing your business important to you? Or is rebranding important? Or even asking the question, can I grow my business without rebranding? And that all depends on how you're set up, with your contacts, with your communities. I kept my website. I made some changes to it that were aligned with my philosophy, kept business plan, made some changes. So the infrastructure kind of stayed static, but I transitioned from Mindful Reflections to now Ashima Singh. Um, and that is my rebranding journey. And we can do Q&A now. Thank you for
Talk to me
listening.
about your colors. There's a lot of reference in the chats about the colors, how they're warm and there's a warm embrace there. We've got one comment. So how did I know you used AI to demonstrate to originally create your logo? What was it that logo? What does it mean to you, and how does it reflect you as your brand?
So when I was doing, even when I put together mindful reflections, I thought a lot about what my favorite colors are, what design um, features appeal to me. I also asked a few people what stood out for them about me when they thought about me, what qualities stood out, bad or good. I wanted to hear it all. And so the color choices came from those conversations and that self-examination. And I
Do you
and I
mind?
love this feedback that people like my logo.
No, no, yeah, you got lots of good comments in the chat. Can you go back one look at your logo? I want to make sure I understand what we're looking at here because I don't understand all the different what the graphics are. So is that a sun or a moon over water? What do we? Oh, that's
Sorry.
okay. Ah, you're perfect. That's fine. What do,
Yes, it is. It is. Sun over water. I forget what prompts I had put in. I think I defined the colors and I defined um, the design style. I wanted something mid-century-ish, uh, minimalist-ish, and this is what I got. So it's what I took.
I think it's wonderful. Um, I wonder how well it looks on a dog toy, but we won't go there today because we were looking at dog toys earlier. uh, I want to reflect a couple more things on your journey. We're talking about kind of connecting with different people that you've met through AEA, through the ICTIG, through this group, through the Healing Circle, and different groups that join. I know that you joined the TIG leadership. So, what has that meant to you, and how has that informed kind of like the development of yourself, your brand, your business, your consulting persona?
I'm gonna stop sharing so that people can see me. And since we're doing Q&A, Mike, Matt, should we stop recording?
Sure, we can. I usually what
Because
I often do is I'll do some questions and answers at the end just for me, and then I'll stop. But why don't we do
oh,
this real
okay.
quick, and then I'll open it up to the entire group. And I know not everybody wants to come on while we're recording, but I, I do
Okay.
think people, particularly on YouTube, might be interested to know why you decided to go with TIG leadership. I can tell you my story, but it's not about me today. But I'm curious why you chose that path and why you chose to kind of contribute as a volunteer back to our organization.
I did it for a couple of reasons. I really benefited from engaging with the people in IC TIG, with IC Chat, and I really value the thought processes that you bring, frankly, the warmth that I have felt from all of you. And I wanted to give back to this community that has given me so much. That was, I think, a primary motivator. The secondary motivator was getting to meet people, getting to know about people, getting to learn from them, learning from other people by watching them. And the people in the leadership group, they are all amazing consultants. They're all amazing people. And they each have they exercise their brand in ways that really align with who they are, I'm finding. And it's really nice to get to have that window into my colleagues. And lastly, and this was at the back of my mind, I wanted to write in in a space that was a little more public. I have felt self-conscious about my writing, and I thought that if I put myself in this spot where I'll be forced to write something that is public, and it's not a huge thing, it'll help me get over that um, fear, that self-consciousness that I have around writing. So I was kind of practicing my brand there.
Sure. And I think that's, yeah, because are you the newsletter editor right now? Is that your role?
I am.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. And it gives you, there's a long history of that. We can go way back. I'm not sure if anybody, there's not that many people here who've been involved with the TIG for 15 years. I did the newsletter back in the early 2011s. We coordinated it back then. It was a good time. I haven't done the James Lipton questions in a while. That's what I call them. But I feel I'm not going to ask you all of them. I'm just going to ask you one of them because you kind of give us your journey and kind of how you chose the path that you chose. Um, and one of the questions that I like to ask people when I have guest hosts is if you were to do it all over again, or what would you do differently? Or another way of phrasing it is, if you were giving advice to a colleague who's just setting out on this adventure, and they're at the earliest stages, what kind of advice would you provide to them?
I would tell them that that excitement that makes you want to forge on full steam ahead. Enjoy that excitement, but move slowly. This is setting up a business is sort of like setting up a new relationship. And the relationship that you're entering may not be the right one for you. And when you slow down and you do things methodically, when you do that kind of hard self reflection and the hard work that Book Yourself Solid workbook requires that you do, I think you gain a fuller appreciation of how much of yourself you end up investing in your business. So, a little knowledge in this instance is absolutely a dangerous thing. Get more knowledge, slow down, is what I would tell them.
Ashima, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording now to let everybody else jump in with all their questions, but I want to thank you very much publicly and for the YouTube folks for your time and your vulnerability and your honesty with our conversation today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody who's live with us, stick around. Everybody in YouTube land, we'll see you guys later.